Brad Johnson here from johnson.audio, and today I'm going to give you a mixing tip on why you would want to use distortion. Now, I'm going to skip over the obvious of distorted guitars because we all know electric guitars are awesome distorted and differing degrees of distortion for differing genres. And I just kind of want to break down in the mixing stages why you would go for distortion. Now, first of all, distortion really was something that was to be avoided back in the day. It would be when you put a signal into the input and on the output it would have added harmonics. And there's odd harmonics and even harmonics. Odd harmonics generally sound bad to us. Even harmonics sound kind of pleasant. So there is a musicality to distortion. This is why we do like analog gear, because it adds in those harmonics. Transistors, tubes, tape, all that does add varying degrees of distortion, and we like that sound. It is pleasing to our ears when it is the right kind of distortion, and we can use distortion to our benefit in our mixes. The way you have to think about distortion is it's kind of like equalizing and compression wrapped up into one. The reason why it's like an equalizer is because if you add harmonics to different areas of the frequency range, you're going to accentuate it. You're going to add thickness. You might be able to bring stuff out of the instrument that you might not be able to get with the standard equalizer. Now, the reason why it's kind of like compression is because it can reduce dynamic range. This is why really heavy distorted guitars, they say you don't really need to add compression because it's already compressed. All that distortion is just totally killing the dynamics, and you're not going to have all the crazy back and forth motion that I talk about with compression. So it is kind of like a compressor. It's kind of like an equalizer. But the things you have to know is that the more you add to like the top end with a distortion plugin or distortion box, you're going to create that brilliance. You're going to make it sound more forward, but your ears will acclimate really quickly to it. So it's easy to abuse. You have to be very careful with adding those extra harmonics in the high frequency areas. Exciters are awesome because when we put it on, all of a sudden it makes the performance seem more bright, alive, in your face. But the thing is that our ears get very, very fatigued by it, but they acclimate really quickly. So it's easy to just get used to it, and then you come back a day later or 2 days later and all of a sudden you realize your mix is absolutely just so bright, and you have to be careful with that. That's why sometimes when you listen to some mixes that other people do and they go, man, this thing's so bright, how do they not notice that? It's because their ears acclimated. They didn't realize that they were mixing that bright. So you have to be careful in those higher frequency ranges. And you also have to just be careful with distortion because it will add density to your sound. So you are taking up more space in your stereo spectrum when you're adding distortion. So sometimes if you can parallel process it and then kind of use an EQ to focus it in on the area that you want to bring out, and you want to add that little bit of distortion too, you have to also know with your analog gear that certain analog gear does kind of tend to add certain harmonics to different areas of the frequency range. So if a particular analog processor tends to accentuate the mid-range and you're working with, say, the overheads, you may not necessarily want that mid-range coming through the overheads. You may want a little bit more of the top end sizzle or whatever it is that you are looking for within that particular instrument. So you have to know what harmonics are being brought out by what it is that you're using. Now, another reason for distortion is maybe you have a thin sounding instrument. Maybe you have an instrument that doesn't really sound that great. So it's kind of like reamping. It can definitely change the tones, and you can fix maybe a little bit poorly recorded instrument and make it sound passable or make it fit within the mix. So it's not just this ugly sound. So that's another good reason to use distortion. Really, at the end of the day, this is kind of like salt and pepper. You don't want to overly salt your music because then it just becomes bleh. You don't want to over pepper it because then it kills everything else. You want to make sure you're just adding it to taste and making it so it just kind of enhances certain areas that you might not be able to get using a compressor or an equalizer. So that's my quick mixing tip for you on why you want to use compression. Please leave me a comment below if you got anything out of this or you'd like to reach out and just say hello. I would love to hear from you. Give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. It helps me get these videos out to more people. To all my other subscribers, I appreciate your continued support. I am Brad Johnson at johnson.audio, where I just want you to make awesome music. All right, I'll see you on the next video. Bye.